Good morning and welcome everyone to another Saturday morning at the Art Clinic Online. We're here with some incredible artists. I am really excited to hear from our artists today. Kind of a jack of all trades and a master of all of them as well, which is kind of a rarity. But I want to first kind of pass the torch to Sheila Crider, who is our January artist. And she has an upcoming exhibition in November, which we'll keep posted on our webpage. You can always check out all of our past presenters' upcoming exhibitions. Of course, you know their work through their videos, but you can actually see them in person this way. But I really, really enjoyed Sheila's work, painting, deconstruction. I mean, just a little bit of everything. So you get to see her work coming in November up at the University of Maryland Satellite. What was it?
Go Global Campus in
Global Campus.
Adelphi.
Thank you.
hmm
Very cool. But anyway, I'll pass the torch to Sheila so she can introduce Terrence, our artist for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jordan. I am really very pleased to have this opportunity to talk about Terence Nicholson. We met back in 2017 when he was working with Honfleur Gallery. I was one of three artists in the summer show there, and Terence came to my studio for the first time, and that's how we kind of met. And we subsequently did a couple of other shows together, most notably the Black Extraction show we did in 2022 with several of your other presenters who were Aziza Gibson Hunter, Gail Shaw Clemens, and Adjoa Burrows. And that was how we really got to know Terence, was through that experience. And he did a great job for us then. But talking about Terence's own work, I think that Jordan was correct in saying that Terence is a master of many trades. I think that his work is very thoughtful and thought provoking and insightful about a lot of different things. And his point of view is singular and pointed at the same time about our contemporary life and how we respond to different things. I really admire the way that he's able to bring in his, what I would say are um, adjacent talents, his martial arts work and his uh, musicality into his visual point of view. I think that the music comes through a lot when he's working on the plexiglass pieces, which are some of my favorite works. I love the way that he's working on the back and giving you a reverse image and the little language that he's creating with those small marks and whatnot. And it feels like you're dancing. I love the way that he incorporates political point of view, the way that he uses natural elements related to food and whatnot. I mean, it's really fascinating how he's able to incorporate so many different things in his work that aren't obvious until you really, really examine the surfaces and how you look at them and how he's actually speaking to us about things we all know but aren't necessarily brought to our forefront until we actually really sit down with them and think. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to my friend Terence Nicholson.
Wow, that's a lot to live up to here. Thank you so much, Sheila.
You can do it, Terence.
I really appreciate I really appreciate being here, especially at this time when the disciplines that I've sort of fluidly traveled through over, the last few decades, the last 30 decades, are starting to gel in a way which makes sense. And I think a lot of that for me, has to do with not trying to make them connect. Um, I always like make the analogy. It's like when you have those dandelion things. When we were kids, we called them Santa Clauses. They would float in the air, and if you tried to grab them, then they would get out of your hand. But if you just kind of left your hands there, it would kind of rest on your hand. And I think that's how I've been. Um, my relationship to materials, my relationship to my muses. I call them my three muses: art, music, and kung fu. Um, at certain times and certain seasons, they come and they sit with me for, and then they get up and another one comes, or then sometimes they all sit together. And what comes from that are objects, songs, movement. Um, I want to really spend most of this time on the objects, but I have to I thought about this and I felt like I need to um, still touch on the influences and things that sort of make, I guess, this sort of gravy of work that I put together. So I'm going to share the screen here. Some pieces I'll stop on for a little while. Other pieces I'll kind of go through. So I have this saying that I believe is true for me, which is to practice practicing. That's been a theme in my martial arts practice that has sort of started to inform other things. Um, this was just a shot in not my last show, but a show a solo show I had at Honfleur Gallery, which is a beautiful space. I was a curator there for a few years. Um, and I was uniquely blessed to be able to showcase artists' work who I admire. So I've been on the curatorial side as well as the artist side, and I'm grateful to have been positioned that way. What's this slide here? I'm going to go to the next slide here. Next slide. Okay, advanced slide. Okay, influences. Okay, so this is Master Chao Chi Liu. He was my first kung fu teacher. He had a store in Chinatown in DC. I became his student in 1994. And he's born at 36. He's 90 now. And he taught me how to channel um, my anger into movement. And I came to him a couple of years after graduating from Corcoran. I came out of Corcoran School of Art in '91. And I was with Master Liu for 10 years from 1994 until 2004 when he retired. And I was his last Kung Fu student. And this is my other Kung Fu teacher. This is Grandmaster Liu Shaoling. When my first teacher, Master Liu, retired, I asked him if I could go and learn with another teacher. And I met Grandmaster Liu. I got my first teacher's permission. Turns out they knew each other. I didn't know that at the time. And I've been with Grandmaster Liu from 2004 up to now. I'm a disciple of the Wudang Longmen. Longmen means Dragon's Gate lineage. He's an 18th generation disciple, and I'm a disciple of his. So I'm one of the 19th generation Kung Fu family of the Wudang Longmen Kung Fu family. And you'll see as we go along why I put these people as influences. This is Mel Chin. Mel Chin I met when I was 19 years old or 20. I was a third year student at the Corcoran. We had an art class where we went to the Hirshhorn. He had a solo show there at the time called Directions. I was taken by his work. At the same time, he did a collaboration with us students for a piece that was a commemorative piece that reflected on the events at Tiananmen Square, Kent State, and it was another incident in Mexico. And so we helped him construct that piece, and then I rode up to New York with him to install it at the Blumhelman Gallery. And it cost me my art history class because 3 classes you failed, and I skipped my 3rd class to run up to New York with him. And my teacher at the time, Andrew Hudson, he was like, "Oh no, that's great. I would have gone too." He said, "But you failed. I'll see you next semester." But I've recently, this was a picture from 2 summers ago. I had an artist grant, a travel grant, and I went to North Carolina to his studio to just shadow his work. And we've never lost contact. So he's one of my mentors. Franklin White was my first year art teacher at Corcoran, and I was able to see him at my last show. He came and visited me, and he just was really nurturing. at a time when I did not necessarily feel like I belonged in the art school environment. I come from an all boys Catholic school. I didn't have the sort of trajectory that you would think an art school student would have. I didn't even know I was going to go to art school until like 12th grade, the spring of 12th grade of that year. And he really helped me. Um, I know this picture is a little grainy, but Dwayne Gautier is the owner of Honfleur Gallery. Um, he uh, he trusted me. He trusted me and helped me to trust myself when it came to being a curator, and programming shows. And I look at him like I would look at a football coach. You know, when I completed the passes, he gave me, he gave me love. And when I didn't complete the passes, how can you do that? You messed up, Anyway, so I love him a lot. He's shown me a lot of things. And before I left Honfleur Gallery to work at the Hirshhorn, where I've been working for the last 6 years. Up until yesterday, I may go back. I think it's a lot. That's a long story. But anyway, he helped me to at least get my chops as far as installing art and how to look in a gallery space and how to look at it in a way where you can tell a story with people's art. This is Steve Coleman. Steve Coleman is a saxophonist. He created the M-Bass Collective throughout the mid 90s and early 2000s. And I was in a group alongside of his group, which was Steve Coleman and Five Elements. He helped me to understand how groups work and how you should have a sympathetic ear when you're in a band and you listen to the other players. And he also taught me about improvisation. And in that context, I was an improvisational lyricist. So, and he played many polyrhythmic things, and he would just nod at us, and we would just start improvising. Um, but more importantly than his musical prowess, the reason this picture means a lot to me is because this was before that gig, and we went out on stage. This was in Paris, and when we got back from you know, after the show was over and everybody cheered, he went right back and sat in that same chair and played for another 40 minutes after the show. And what I don't know what he thought, but what I thought when I saw that, what he modeled for me was that it's always practice. Whether you're on stage, whether you're off stage, it's always practice. My kung fu teacher said it's always practice. My first kung fu teacher said, I'm going to show you this thing. I want you to do it 1,000 times, and then I don't want you to think about it. I want you to stay empty. And so watching Steve and how he moved throughout the world, it was confirmation to what my Sifus is another word for kung fu teacher, what my Sifus told me. And so this picture means a lot. This is Omar Sosa. I've toured and recorded with Omar in the early 2000s. He's from Cuba. We would go on the road, same kind of setup, except he was playing piano and I would get on stage and we would, and he was also just like Steve, a real experimentalist, a real seeker. The surface of his music would present itself like Afro-Cuban jazz, but he was interacting with the Moroccan traditional musicians, and Steve was experimenting with Indian musicians and stuff. So as I would watch these guys, through my eyes, I would see how, though they were masterful in their techniques and skill, they also were very much, they stayed green. They always were looking. And that was important. And at these moments, I didn't always know how that would influence my object making, but now I understand. Before I get into this, there's a couple of other people who I didn't have pictures of. I just need to put their name out into the ether so you can understand sort of what drives me. So there's Martin Purrier, of course, Sonia Clark, who she's just amazing. Sonia Clark is amazing to me. Jack Whitten. I've been going down the Jack Whitten wormhole for a little while now. And then there's a painter who hung a show of hers at the Hirshhorn a few years ago named Charlene Von Hale, or Heil, Heyl. And her reckless abandon uh, in terms of letting go of who, she thought she should be, or any of this, um, and her experimentative spirit. Um, During the time we were hanging her show, I couldn't wait to just go home and start working. Same with Sonia. I helped hang her show at the Women's Art Museum, and every day we were on that install, I would go home and just like get busy, you know. So I'm gonna kind of go through some pieces sort of older and more current, um, and I'll hang on some. I want to kind of leave time for questions. This piece is from 2018. This piece is called 10, like the number 10. Um, I was raised Catholic. Um, this piece is kind of a reflection of that time. It's sort of a, kind of a confessional vibe, but the question that I'm asking, and often uh, I don't look at my pieces as like, here's this sculpture. I mean, sometimes I just look at it like this piece is a monument. This piece is actually a question. Or this piece is a joke or whatever. So, but this piece is really a question because it was right around the time where there was a lot of controversy in the Catholic Church, a lot of allegations about priests and so forth. Oh, there's my buddy Rose. And so my question was, on either side, like, who is really on either side of this screen? Who is the real person on either side of this screen that we kneel in front of and say, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. Um, and so yeah, so that's what that piece is about. I really was just beginning to get in tech, as far as materials go. Um, I was beginning to get into a phase of I like the idea of layers of things to look through. Um, I just found out recently how much Duchamp has had an effect on me without me even knowing it. Um, but I like this idea of layers of things that you peer through that sort of, as you go through, tell different stories. This piece is called Our Lady of Perpetual Servitude. It's 10 feet by about 6 feet. And I often use objects that are either found or objects that are usually considered for other purposes, but they have a significance to me. I was sort of reflecting on domestic workers, nurses. My mother was a nurse. Um, and this whole notion of when it comes to caretakers, who spend countless thankless hours of caring for other people. My question to myself, and I guess through the materials, was, when do these people have time for themselves? When do they have time to take care of themselves in the way that they have to take care of others? So it's this sort of image, kind of reminiscent of a Virgin Mary figure with baby nipples covering the body, um, and moving blankets that I sewed together. And a lot of the materials I like to use in this piece, um, the choice of materials was still. So this is a detail of that piece again. So I don't know where I glitched out at, but so that I like to use, like in this piece, I wanted to use things like latex, um, uh, the blanket, just because of what that could mean. Is so Our Lady of Perpetual Servitude. I made that in 2018. I'm going to skip to this other piece. Okay, so this piece is called Safety Jacket: A Morning in Chinatown. And in 2016, my teacher, my first kung fu teacher, Master Lu, he had a shop in Chinatown, and the kung fu school was upstairs, and he was evicted. It was when the development in the Chinatown area was quite rapid, and his eviction was sudden. someone called me and told me that one of my students called me and told me I needed to get down there because his stuff was on the street, and it was a very sad day, but we helped him get all of his things out and uh, get his stuff in storage. And before he left, he gave me the banner, the school's banner, and a box full of these kung fu belts they call sashes. So what you see on this jacket is a jacket that's made of these kung fu belts that I just, I built them, and I built it in the model of the kung fu jackets we would wear as uniforms. Um, and it ended up uh, being purchased by the von Lipsy family. They moved to Greece and they donated it to the Smithsonian. And it's now the Smithsonian Anacostia Community Museum owns it. But last year, or the year before last, it was an anchor piece in the show at American Art Museum called Chinatown, Sightlines, Chinatown and Beyond. And so, and which is, I couldn't think of a better place for it to be. It was in the heart of Chinatown. Um, and this exhibit gave a history from a few different perspectives of the history of Chinatown, its martial art tradition, uh, commerce, and just sort of, what it meant over the decades for people who lived there, and then also how it affected, other folks. I mean, Chinatown was kind of like my second home um, while I was training. And it was a residency that the Smithsonian Asian Pacific American Center had at SAM for about a year. That show was up for a year. Um, Moving forward here. This is in the exhibit. That's my son, Gabriel. He is 16 now. He's a student at Baltimore School for the Arts. He's a film guy. Um, and It was a great show. I was glad to be a part of that. Smithsonian Folk Life. Big shout to Sojin Kim from Smithsonian Folk Life. She's amazing. Uh, Moving on. Okay. So I like to also experiment with screen printing um, and painting on top of screen printing. This piece was called Anacostia as Dreams Go. I basically took I grew up near Anacostia, and I took a bunch of photos and made screens of them and sort of basically tried to put together just a dreamscape of the areas, the unique architecture, the houses, some of the narrow uh, cuts and things that, stand out of my mind if you were to tell me to write down words to describe Anacostia um, and the towers and so forth. And Yeah, although I like paint, I don't necessarily consider myself a painter. I like to move paint. Paint is just another object, another. If it was edible, I'd probably put it on some toast and eat it. I don't know, but that's I like to play with photographic transfer, screen print, um, pochoir, and just I try to remain open and listen to what the material tells me to do, instead of forcing my hand. Um, this piece is called Crosstown Beef. Um, in the background, you see a cityscape, and it's this sort of cow overlooking the city. And up close, inside the belly of the cow, is a parasite. Um, and I've, I was, I became aware of the fact that depending on where the grocery stores are in the DC area, um, the quality of your food is going to change too. Um, and so what this is really about is about, like the food desert in Anacostia. The quality of the meets in areas like Ward 8 and Ward 7 versus other parts of town. And kids have to eat, people have to eat, but the I believe that there's a connection between the quality of food and the overall constitution, mental, physical, uh, of young people when they're trying to just go about the business of being a student and just living their life. Food's important, and the quality of the food is also. So, um, oh, so this piece, my friend Zoma Wallace, she's amazing. Dr. Zoma Wallace, she's a curator, and she saw that I was beginning to do this work on plexiglass, what Sheila alluded to. Basically, what I've been doing with plexi is basically painting backwards. I'll deal with the foreground, and then the next layer, and then the next layer, and then when I'm done, um, then I put gesso on the back of it. So when you look at the pieces, the surface of it, there isn't any texture to see. And well, there isn't anything to see on the back either. Um, it's just all sandwiched between, all the work is sandwiched between the underside of the plexi, well, the face of the plexi and the underside of it. And so this piece was, this is part of a video I did called Body Politics. This was around 2020. This was when we couldn't go anywhere without having to stop somewhere to get our noses swabbed before we could travel, or the great equalizer known as COVID-19 didn't care whether you were from the Park Avenue or Park Bench. If you got it, especially in 2020, it was devastating. But then there was all the political things around it as well. On the news every day, I probably watched more than my fair share that summer about this disease, or the number count, the body count, the number of cases, the number of deaths. So I thought about that in like when I was young, we used to have these little puzzles. You connect the numbers and it would make a shape. But in this case, the numbers don't actually lead to anything. And so there's the photograph that I enlarged. This is 6 feet wide, 3 feet tall. Zoma is the figure here. She's got a mask on and she's wrapped. I blew up some images of cotton swabs, which they glow in the dark actually, and screen printed those. Took a while to write the numbers backwards in order so they could read forward. Yeah, and just kind of allow try to listen to what the materials was telling me to do next. And there's a video that's like 10 minutes long that goes with this. It's not on this presentation. Here's another piece that's a little older. Sheila alluded to this thing that I've given a name for now anyway. I call it crypto scripto. It's just what I do is I do sort of stream of consciousness mark making. I don't have any music playing. I try to keep it silent. Um, and I'm not looking for the marks to have any significance as any kind of like saying anything or some, you know, uh, hidden language or anything. But what I have noticed is an exercise in mindfulness for me. But what I have noticed is that I tune into the sounds that the marks are making. And I also have started to notice recently that there are like, for lack of a better term, phrases. So the mark making, this piece is called Becoming. And yeah, I'm playing. Okay. I mean, I don't like to give a way out kind of a explanation to a thing when actually what I'm doing is playing. Okay, I come to the studio to play. Like, I mean, I try, I'm 50, I'm about, what? I'm about to be 58. And, I'm just trying to tap into my 12-year-old energy. That when there was no art school, when there was no critiques, when there was none of that, when I was like, 8 or 9, when we would go to the sandbox and dig a hole. 5 of us, we would just dig a hole and keep digging, and then our friends would come and they would help dig the hole. We didn't ask what we were digging for. We didn't ask, "Wow, that's some really good shovel work you're doing." None of that. It's just we're digging a hole. Okay, we're just digging and talking and creating, and and um and so this piece and the pieces that are coming forward are coming out of that spirit of just experimentation and play, playing with texture. I love texture, playing with varying degrees of transparency, um, and just and any of these pieces really, in my view, are just snapshots of how I'm walking through the world at the moment. This piece is called There Will Be Famine. Again, it's a combination of mark making, screen printing, and photographic transfer, all on the underside of plexiglass. In the lower right corner, there's a dark horse. That's about the only non sort of abstract figure in that piece. And I would really attribute this piece to my love for Charlene von Hale's work. Um, I, I, I love her work. Anyway, keep going. This piece is called The Sacred and the Profane. It's 36 inches tall and I think 24 inches wide. And it's really the the djembe drum has such significance in African culture, and the drum has such significance in Black culture, certainly. Um, and that's sacred to me. Um, but then there are all these falling figures, all these falling bodies, and just I sort of juxtapose my this is how I was feeling at the time, and so I just put it down. There's I screen printed the figures, and I did a photographic transfer of some pictures I took of a few different drums, and that's the one that I decided to use. Oh, okay. So this piece is called One Blood. It's 80 inches tall by, it's a door. It's 80 inches by 36 inches wide. I casted, I have a detail of this on the next slide. I casted the knobs from resin. The brown texture you see around the door, that's coffee grounds that mixed with acrylic medium, so I sort of coated the door. When I was thinking of how to give this thing texture, um, and I was sort of listening to what it was saying, the door said coffee, put coffee in it. And so I was like, okay, then that's what, because I wanted to put grass, but then that meant I didn't know how that was going to go, and I didn't want to put astroturf because I didn't want it artificial. Um, there's an inscription on the plate on the door that I didn't emboss it, but whatever the option that the opposite of embossing something, I guess I hammered the letters in, and it says it's a mantra that says, "All that I am, you are. All that I am, you are." And if you keep saying it, it just kind of runs like a loop. And it was from a the sort of I guess the sort of inspiration for building the piece, aside from just thinking about the society that we've been living in seems to be, at least with the way it's portrayed a lot in media, is like always wanting to point out our differences as humans. In my view, I think we're all related, and I don't, and I like, I feel like whatever it is, and whatever your belief or non-belief is, I think that fundamentally we're all the same, and we have different aspects of expression. It's like how it might have been Rumi. that talked about how like the ocean is in one drop of water from the ocean, and I kind of believe that. But my friend Osman told me, in his view about what his creator was, he referred to his creator as like a disco ball. And then as it's turning and all the different flecks of light you see on the wall are different colors, but they all coming from the same ball. So inside of each of the knobs are just different objects that I found. Um, some flowers, cloves, coffee grounds, metal objects, just varying things in each one. 65 of these knobs on this piece. I made more than 65, but these were the ones that I felt sort of made the cut, so to speak. And this made this in 2023. Um, this piece, excuse me, is called, what is that piece called? That piece is called um, He Is So Well Spoken. And At first I was going to call it Fishers of Men, but I didn't. I changed my mind. Uh, the I'm not big on symbolism, like at least in any overt way, but uh, when I used to perform a lot, I was very self-conscious, and or if I had to speak in public, I was really self-conscious. And what I would look for, a little game I would play to myself is I would look through the crowd, and if I saw anyone in the crowd that seemed to be engaged into whatever it was I was singing or rapping or talking, I would make imaginary plugs from me to them. And I would just scan those people who I was plugged into to just help me make it through the freaking talk or whatever it was I was doing. Um, and then it'd be like, oh, you're so well spoken. I was like, all right, yeah, I'm supposed to be. I mean, my mother bent over backwards to get me through a decent school. I hope that I can speak okay, But anyway, playing a lot with the materials. I like to be uncomfortable. I like to throw myself in uncomfortable situations. I hadn't worked with wood really that much before. I had a big chunk of wood, and it was like I need to make it do what it is that I wanted to do. And the piece of wood told me, well, here's what I will do for you, and here's what I won't, and so the sort of if there's not a feeling of like a little bit of fear when I'm working on something, then you know, I uh I don't feel like it's worth it. I'm gonna move kind of a little swifter now. This piece is pretty large. It's called Home of No Return. It's 6 feet by 6 feet. There's resin that's rubber bands are stretched across it, and that's all embedded in resin. This is all on my website too, by the way. Um, and behind all of that is this really lush paradise-like scene where but it's basically a portal, and it's like birth. It's like once you are born, you're out here, and you can't you can't come back. Uh, this piece is a large piece. It's 7 by 8 feet. It's called The Eternal Echo. And it's again one of these pieces where there's a lot of stream of consciousness mark making with these voids. After I made this piece, I found out in the galaxy in the Andromeda galaxy, there's a big void called Boya. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. Void, and basically it's just like this gap where there aren't as many galaxies. Like in the universe, well, you got what the Milky Way is in Andromeda, and then you have the bigger thing, and then all these clusters of galaxies. But there's these voids, which I found interesting. This piece is really about where we are, where we think we're going. This piece actually has an audio that goes along with it. It's The audio is a loop of this song that Earth, Wind, and Fire recorded called their version of Where Have All the Flowers Gone. It's a reflection on the killing of um, the nine churchgoers in South Carolina at the hands of Dylan Roof. It's called Nine Red Roses and One Hamburger. And if there are these kneelers, it's a wall piece, although these are kneelers. and 9 bullet holes in one, and the other one doesn't have any because, as the story goes, Dylan Roof allowed one of the couple of people to escape so that they could tell the story. This piece is called Mass. It's on a large. It's 7 feet by 6 feet, I believe. It's on. I painted it as I'm using roofing rubber along with acrylic on uh, this material that is on the inside of insulated refrigeratable trucks. I got a bunch of that stuff, and I like to paint on it and do things with it. So that's what that piece is about. This is a new work. It's called Regarding Manhood. It's a bowling ball that I stuffed a sledgehammer into, and it's a wall piece. Oh, it took a little while to figure out how to get that to happen, but it's stable. And then there's this chain that goes from, here's another view on that bowling ball. It's basically about like my experience growing up in the neighborhood I grew up in. You know, you better not cry. You know, you better fight those dudes. You know, you better not talk about how vulnerable you feel. You better walk it off. You know, so on one side it says walk it off, on the other side it says suck it up. And that's what we heard growing up. Suck it up and walk it off. This is called Reflections on a Letter to the Gentry, or the Harlem Shake. And it's basically about gentrification. It's about the precision with which the planning commission handles what areas of town that they're going to take away, or change, what areas are not slated for change, and the similarities between that and colonizers. And so there are wishbones and there's peppercorns sprinkled around in there, and this is 6 feet. It's pretty big. I know I'm going fast. I wanna leave a little time for questions. This piece is called Mother God. It's 20 by 30, 24 by 36, I believe. It's paper, um, a little bit of everything: painting, paper, photographic transfer. It's just maybe it's my reflection on the times I was hanging out with Omar Sosa and those guys. They in Cuba they practice this religion called Santeria, and I felt like their relation to the elements and to the spirit world I found very interesting. So this sort of comes out of that. This piece is called Wisdom. It's a smaller piece. On the left side, there are copper wires embedded in resin. On the right side, there are a few of my old dreadlocks embedded in resin. And again, it's really a playful piece, something that I really like to fool around with texture and color and how light bounces off things. Um, this is a new work. I don't have a title for this. I think I just call it motion study. I'm doing things where I'm using a mixture of shredded paper and acrylic medium and coating things to change the surface and play around with space in between. And so this sort of comes out of that. My next show is called Playground Spirituals, martial arts. This is fast. So my martial arts influence has really affected me practicing, well, the idea of repetition, and being constant. Kung Fu means skill acquired over time and work. And that's whether you're a gardener, whether you're a martial artist, whether you're a butcher, whether you're a florist, same thing. This was a demo out in Freedom Plaza a few years ago. This was at the opening of the Sightlines show at the American Art Museum. I led a Qigong Tai Chi class. These are some of my students. On the right hand side is well, he was little then, my son Gabriel. He's taller than me now. Um, and this was a group project that I did with Mel Chin in 2020. He did some research on what characters, what was the proper Chinese characters to read out Black Lives Matter, and once he did that, he sent me several boxes of T-shirts, which I screen printed. I've never screen printed so much in my life. Uh, I printed way too many shirts by hand, and out of like maybe 36 dozen shirts, I had two misprints. Uh, that's one of my favorite. It was hot that day. That's in Anacostia Park. Um, I did a show that basically encapsulated my art practice, my martial art and music practice last year at the American Poetry Museum called Sub. People call me Sub, and the three muses, polymathematic experience. Uh, and this was just a shot from it. So there was artwork, martial arts, and then my Pumas, my fat lace b-boy Pumas. Music, I have a punk band called Phalo Blue. This was when I had a lot of hair at 930 Club. And we have we were on at Martin Luther King Library upstairs in the there's a permanent exhibit and there's a timeline of videos of different bands throughout the years, and fortunately we got to be a part of that. Coming up, October 18th at the at Montgomery, I'm sorry, at PG Community College. I'm going to have a show. It's going to be called Playground Spirituals. I'm getting work ready for that. Um, I have ongoing series of workshops that I do for groups, for individuals on just basics of art preparation. This was a picture when I was working with the Black artists of DC. So I'm always interested in, I love to teach, and particularly like undergrads, because we come out of school and still don't know how to hang a painting. So it's really important stuff. So I do workshops for that, and my art handling business is growing. And next Thursday in Baltimore, I open my Tai Chi school. It's Longman Wu, House of the Dragon's Gate. It's in the area called Charles Village, and on Thursdays I'll be teaching Tai Chi, Qigong, and if anyone wants to move a little faster, I got faster stuff too. And I believe that is my story. Yeah, and I'm sticking to it. TerenceNicholsonArt.com is my website. So thank you guys so much.
Terrence, that was amazing. Uh, I was writing down notes just of things to talk to you about and questions to ask. And I think the thing I'd maybe want to revisit for a question is kind of the muses and how they combine or play off one another. What I was kind of formulating in my head, maybe you can kind of correct me, is kind of the binding, I guess, through line between your muses seems to be improvisation, where in I'm guessing martial arts, not a martial artist, I don't know, but you're reacting to a situation or an opponent. In music, you're reacting to your bandmates, or you're changing your approach as they play. And in art, you seem to be, or at least visual art, you seem to be reacting to an idea or a movement or a thing like COVID or whatever, Black Lives Matter, and kind of adapting your materials and your mindset to whatever is needed to create the imagery. Does that sound right?
That's really awesome how you put it. And I can sum that up in a quote that a good martial arts master friend of mine told me. He said, when you know the rules, you can bend them. When you don't know the rules, you will break them. And so in all of those disciplines, there's been, of course, foundational stuff, theory, fundamentals, down the line in every discipline. And you learn those things. But I know people who are rich in theory, but scared to move a brush, or rich in, understanding, rich in martial spirit and can't wait to fight, but have poor technique. Um, I would agree. When I first started, when I was in art school, I was so wild with paintbrushes. I'd have two of them. And my one of my teachers made me stop, and he said, "I want you for a little while to get small canvases, small brushes, and I want you to paint still lifes. Then later, go back to your canvases." And what happened is that when I started painting larger again, I started having more um, control, but I didn't lose my painterly spirit. Um, And so I think that there's this place where, you know, discipline has its place. But at the end of it all, whether it's whatever we're talking about, food, gardening, kung fu, art, it still is going to come down to personal expression. So no, you're dead on. I would think in improvisation, there's definitely a space for that.
Yeah, that's great. Luis, you have a question?
Yes. Hey, great presentation, Terence. My question is, I know you had your studio in DC and now you have moved out to Baltimore. And has the change in environment, if there has been, if you've seen it much, has it changed or inspired you to do different work, so use different elements? How has the change been?
Thanks, Luis. Well, good to see you too. Well, one thing is the affordability of a studio has been amazing. In the building that I'm in, there are other artists in here, and I haven't felt how I've in the last 4 years. I haven't felt this way since I was in art school, just being around so many people making work. Um, so that's been good. The thing about, but I get homesick. You know, I miss DC a lot, and so while I'm here in Baltimore, it's actually work for me to go out to see different openings and stuff like that because I'm a studio rat. I just want to hang out and hear all. I had a show down at the Peale Museum last year, and I wanted to just stay in the studio, and the opening was going on, and I had to make myself go down there
Mm.
and just mingle, because because DC is my village. That's my village. Anacostia is my village. And
Mm.
so it's been a give and take. But in terms of just art making, it's been really important to have this space.
Mm. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful and amazing presentation. I have a flurry of questions, but I won't ask them. I want to ask one. How do you, when you come up with an idea, Terence, what do you make a little sketch? Do you use a sketchbook to sort of develop your ideas? How do I know how they start in your brain, right? And reacting
Right.
to so many things and to incorporate so many things, but how do you bring them to fruition at first?
Mhm. I appreciate that question. So, generally speaking, the way I sketch out my ideas is I say them out loud. Like maybe I'm driving and I was like with the piece with the doorknobs. I mean, my sketch was
Right.
I was driving down New Hampshire Avenue and I was like, I want to do a door that has a bunch of knobs on it. And then I maybe did a little sketch. But my thing is that unless it's really like this that piece with the bowling ball, there were definitely things I needed to talk to people who were like carpenters and stuff about like,
Right.
hey, I want to put this bowling ball on the wall and I don't want it to fall and hurt someone. So I needed to consult with people like, well, here's some things to consider to do that. But I really like to leave as much off the page, so to speak, so that I can play.
Right.
And then what happens is I'm working on it. Actually, when I'm working on a piece, I keep a notepad handy because uh, things come up that I just need to write about as I'm working on something. But
Yeah.
usually, yeah, I just kind of say, I'm gonna make this thing and I'm gonna make it so, yeah, it's like, it's like I'm my own hype man. Yeah, you're gonna make that door and it's gonna be plaster. And then it's like, well, maybe not plaster. And so, no, and then
Right.
part of it too is like I said, like listening to the work,
That's
listening to
wonderful.
those
Thank
pieces.
you. That's great. There are a couple of people raising hands. Carol, and then someone else whose name I don't know. Go ahead.
Denise, hi, it won't be long.
Oh,
I am
and Carol.
curious, Terence. First of all, congratulations on opening the school. Wow. And second, I need to know, sensory wise, when you brush against your door, do you get a hint of the coffee aroma?
Well, the first when I was making the piece, the whole third floor smelled like a coffee shop, but it's
I
died
bet.
down now. Yeah, yeah. The whole first floor used to smell like that, but no, that's long since gone.
Long gone. Okay. Thank you. Congratulations on it all. What they say, everything in all places all at once. There you are. Thank you for your contributions.
Hey, Carol.
Yeah, I'm in awe. Um, your cross-disciplinary living and being is fascinating to me. With such a diverse artistic ability and references and interests, how do you narrow down and choose what you're going to work on next? Where does it come from? What are your drivers of focus and selection? I'm an improvisational dancer for 15 years at Glen Echo Park, and we have something called our little dance, which is kind of a meditation we start with as a warm-up. But I don't know what you do, and how do you decide when there's so much wonderful things to do?
Well, so I had a teacher in my second year, Bill Willis. He's a painting teacher of mine, and he said this in passing, but I guess it's stuck. And he said, um, if the ideas that you have mean anything, they won't go anywhere. And so I've found that to be true. So I just kind of like, I have about four different um, pieces I'm working on right now. And um, I like the movie that is the movie where I walk into the studio and I sit down and just work on this piece and finish it and work on that piece. That's not the movie. That's not the real movie. The movie is I come in here, I do my tidy 10. Tidy 10 is I set my clock for 10 minutes and spend the first 10 minutes tidying up the place. Not 9, not 11, 10 minutes. And then sort of whatever is saying, come over here and fiddle with me for a little while, then that's what I'll do. Um, and then there'll be a piece that'll show up that I didn't even think was like a thing, you know. So I just try to that can get tricky when you have a show coming up, but I just really just try to I'm not a Taoist, but I understand Taoist principles. And I like the idea of being empty because then I feel like I'm in a position to receive what it is that I'm supposed to be doing next, you know, to just try to stay present. So, you know,
Thank you.
yeah, so I just don't worry about it anymore, anymore. Thanks.
Adjoa, good to see you.
How you doing? Hi, Terence. Thank you for the presentation. I was just curious in terms of your process. You know, when you're working on a piece, you may feel really strongly about the content that you're working on. How do you know when the piece is actually done?
Right. So it does depend on the piece, but a lot of times what I've noticed is there's a point where I start to feeling like let's say if it was like a sauce, say I'm making meat sauce for pasta, and there's a point where it starts to being like, yeah, you taste it a little bit or whatever, and you start saying, yeah, like maybe in 5 minutes I should take it off the heat. So what I start learning to do is when I start to when the piece is starting to tell me that, like, hey, all right, I know that you just figured out, I know you just found out a new mark making technique, but that doesn't mean it's for me. Maybe it's for another piece. So then that's when I leave it alone and get away from it for a couple days or a week, and then like put it somewhere where it's like when I walk in the studio, or I'll take a picture of it and go home. And then like, so I guess what I'm saying is I kind of start slowing down when it starts to feeling like, this might be, I might be getting ready to make a funny move and mess it, and not do what I thought I was going to do. So let me start downshifting and just kind of leave it alone and see if there's anything else. Like George Washington Carver used to do when he talked to that guy was talking to the sweet potatoes, and talking to the peanuts. He was like, what do you want to tell me? I read that, and then I said, "Well, I'm gonna do the George Washington Carver and just be like, well, what you want to tell me now? You finished telling me stuff? All right, well then, all right, then I guess I'm stopping."
My wife can smell when pies are done, and I don't know how she does it. But anyway, Sheila, I see your hand is raised.
I would like for you to talk a little bit about how your work at the Hirshhorn as an installer influenced how you work? Because I'm sure that you gained a lot of knowledge and it made you kind of stretch out a little bit about how you put pieces together.
Yeah, well, yeah, I've been so fortunate to be friends with the people in conservation and the people in collections when they get work, new acquisitions, and watching them I just be so mad about like this we just got this sculpture and how we're gonna hang it on the wall. Look how it's created. It's created all funny and create, you know. And so what I started thinking, I was like, I need to talk to these people as I'm working on stuff. And so I talked to like, my friend in conservation, like, I got this piece. I want to use this thing as an adhesive, but I also want it to be around for, 100 years. And they might say, yeah, well, then don't use that adhesive, or this thing is going to degrade, or, whatever. Then of course, because I'm working on in the exhibits team, every new show is another set of problems to resolve. What kind of walls we have versus what this thing is. We have to hang this thing from the ceiling. We have to put this thing, we have to think about wheelchair accessibility, on down the line. Um, so yeah, so when I'm in my place and I'm working on things, uh, one of the things that considerations is like, okay, well, how's this piece going to be on the wall? How am I going to be able to, I like to sleep. Can I go to sleep knowing that this bowling ball is not going anywhere on this wall? You know, and so it's definitely given me um, a, I guess you could say like a holistic view of what this object making and like I'm always thinking from the studio to the gallery and back. Can this piece of, can it be as low maintenance as possible? Any time-based art that I put in the gallery, I usually have a timer. And I just ask them, okay, what are your hours? And I set my timer on the piece to their hours so they don't have to touch anything. Just at 10 a.m. or noon, it'll turn on, and at 6, it'll turn off. Or manual if it's, I just try to be as considerate as I can um, as an artist when it comes into, or if a piece is purchased, like, yeah, okay, I have it hung in my studio all crazy looking, but maybe people don't want, if someone wants to actually buy this piece, how can they, if I don't install it, how could it, go? And if they move to out of the country, could they still hang the piece? So I try to think about these things. Well, I've become, it's kind of baked in now that I think about these things. Yeah, I appreciate that question. Yeah, for sure. And that's why I like to do workshops too, because I want other artists to know that, especially because, I went through hell as a curator hanging people. How do you hang this thing?
Yeah, that's why I wanted you to talk a little bit about that because I think that it's important that you share that knowledge and how you share it. So,
Yeah, if this grant comes through, which it seems like it might, I'm going to be doing some pop-ups in just any space that'll have me for the next year, where I'm just going to be doing uh, basic art prep workshops for artists and for anyone who wants to come and just learn some, to share what it is that we share with me. Let's put it that way.
okay.
I have a space here at Glen Echo waiting for you then. Terrence, I have one more question. I know that you're going over, and I really appreciate you giving us your knowledge and your experience this weekend. But something that you said kind of stuck with me that, if it doesn't have a little fear involved with it, it's not worth doing. And I love that. I think that's incredible. But I guess the question for you would be, if you're working on a piece, whether it be for play or for something more serious, and it doesn't have that fear, what do you do?
So I'll go refer to when I was competing in Kung Fu tournaments. When I did my first tournament, there were 29 of us competing, and I'm pretty sure I came in like 28. I'm pretty sure I was like 28. I stopped keeping score after a while, but it didn't make me stop. And I kept coming to the tournaments year after year. That was in 2000. In 2018, I won world champion in my division for my event. And then, so from 2018 until I stopped in 2020, 2020 and just start judging tournaments, is it wasn't about the medal anymore. And it wasn't even about like I would mostly win a lot. And and so I had a sort of switch in my head of like, all right, well maybe um it's not about the medal, even though I've been I'm looking at the field of talent and I'm telling you I'm going to win this event. But instead of that, why don't I use this as an example, like how I was inspired to train in the first place to see watching people's expertise. And so it was like, well, so maybe this is the chance to share the expertise that was shared with me and the proficiency. So let me just do my best, even though I know I can do this thing. But now it's not about doing this thing for me. It's about doing this thing as an inspiration, just like the guitar players, the artists, the martial artists that came before me. They did their thing. They weren't in the on stage like, boy, I hope Terence gets inspired by this. I mean, it was like they did their thing and I got inspired. And so that can kind of help me get through those times, but things may seem a little like mundane. I don't like to do series of work because I like to be in challenging positions. But my mentors are like, well, you should try to make some more of these pieces. If you can stand it, like make some more. Like, keep it, And so I've been like, okay, well, there is still room so that it puts discipline in another light, right? It puts discipline not in discipline like I'm trying to achieve this level of skill, but discipline like, okay, I have a level of skill in this thing, let me continue on it to see where that goes. So, the bamboo is an old Chinese phrase, the taller the bamboo grows, the lower it bows.
All right, one last question by Andy.
Terence, my simple question is, how do you respond to praise? You obviously get a lot of it. And second part, how has that evolved over time? Thanks.
Thank you so much for that question. The Tao Te Ching has a chapter called Favor and Disgrace. Favor and disgrace are the same. When you fall into favor with people, you're surprised. When you fall into disgrace, you're surprised. And the only reason why we feel any way about either one involves our concept of self. And if I can lose, even for a little bit, if I can lose that, then I'm in my best possible position. Working at what I do and being constant. Uh, One of the byproducts of that is, you get articles written about you, you get shows, people write things, but then also, you don't get grants, you don't get accepted, and that's all a part of what goes along the way. And so as I guess on my journey, um, when I receive praise, it feels good. Um, but I just try to just remember, just stay on the path. This is just a byproduct of it. You just keep working and sit still, smell the roses, and then get back up and keep going. So that's a beautiful question, and thank you for that.
Terence, before we leave you, can you tell us one more time where you teach and where we can see your work next?
Yes, so my work is going to be at the Prince George's County Community College. They have a new gallery. I don't know why they didn't put the address on the flyer, but I'll find a way to get you guys that. That's October 8th through December. My school is going to be opening Thursday, the 6th, 7:30, and every Thursday after that at St. John of Baltimore Unitarian Church, that's on the corner of 26th and St. Paul Street in Baltimore. And I'm going to be teaching Tai Chi, Qigong, and I'm going to kind of sniff around and see who wants some Kung Fu because I love teaching Kung Fu.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time and your knowledge and your history. This has just been a fabulous and engaging talk. I want to remind everyone who's here today, in 2 weeks, we have Ashley Corin hosted by Reem Basowitz, who presented earlier this year. I also want to remind you all that next Friday evening, the studio that I'm in now will host the artwork of Susan O'Neill. She is a figurative artist, as you kind of see behind me on the walls. I'm still hanging the show right now. But the work is really beautiful. It's kind of not necessarily about the way a figure looks, but the way a figure moves and the gesture and how that incorporates into the piece itself. So 6 to 8 p.m. during Glen Echo Park's Art Walk. Come join us for a glass of wine and meet the artist and say hi. And I think that's it. Thank you again to Sheila for bringing Terence to us. This is an incredible experience. So thank you all.
Thank you so much.
And we'll see you all in 2 weeks for Ashley's work. Thanks so much, guys.